What if I told you one of the most infamous Beatles tracks isn't really a song at all? It doesn't have a melody, a chorus, or a beat you can hum. Some people skip it. Some people are haunted by it. And a few, they hear something deeper. Today, we're diving into Revolution 9, a track that isn't a great song, but is a mind-bending, world-shifting soundscape. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you love music history, sound experiments, and a little chaos in your playlists, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you make it to the end, drop number 9 in the comments. I'll know you're one of the real ones. Let's get into it. Revolution 9 appears on the White Album, released in 1968. By this point, the Beatles weren't just a band, they were a cultural phenomenon. But the White Album was where things fractured, creatively, personally, musically. The track is credited to Lennon or McCartney, but make no mistake. This is John Lennon's chaotic baby, with significant help from Yoko Ono, and sound engineer George Martin's assistant, Chris Thomas. Paul McCartney reportedly hated the idea of it. George and Ringo, largely hands-off. It emerged from the extended version of Revolution, Yes, the rock song. Lennon became fascinated with the avant-garde potential of tape loops, reversed audio, classical samples, and found sounds. And what resulted was this. Let's say it outright, Revolution 9 is not a great song. In fact, it's barely a song at all. There's no verse, no chorus, no hook, no melody you can walk away humming. You won't find yourself singing it in the shower. It doesn't get played at weddings. It never topped the charts. In fact, many listeners skip it entirely. But that's missing the point. Because Revolution 9 wasn't made to be sung, it was made to be felt. It's a collage. A sound painting. An 8-minute fever dream that moves from room to room in the house of your brain. So what is Revolution 9? It's a musique concrete composition, part of an experimental tradition that dates back to the 1940s. Think of it as sound sculpture, bits of tape, noise, and voice samples physically cut, spliced, reversed, and layered. The iconic number 9 line. It's taken from a test tape of a voice announcing track numbers at the EMI studios. A mistake, recycled into something iconic. The screams. The orchestras. The baby crying. The piano crash. It's like someone hijacked a radio dial during the apocalypse and recorded what they found. You hear snippets of a soccer game. A man saying, "Take this, brother, may it serve you well." Reverse speech. Car crashes. Bits of classical pieces. And in the background, chaos building and subsiding like waves crashing on a nervous system. If Hey Jude is a hug, and Let It Be is a prayer, Revolution 9 is a glitch in the matrix. It's not about pleasure. It's about confrontation. Lennon wanted to make people think. To disturb, provoke, and immerse. And in a way, it worked. Some called it self-indulgent garbage. Some critics labeled it unlistenable. But others, they saw the future. Artists like Frank Zappa, Brian Eno, Sonic Youth, and even Aphex Twin would eventually take similar ideas into new sonic territory. It may not be fun, but it was freeing. Was there a message? Lennon later said it was an attempt to paint a picture of a revolution, not the idealized slogans of politics, but the messy, terrifying, out-of-control eruption of real-world upheaval. You're not told what to feel. You're immersed in uncertainty. The track feels like walking through a burning city where every building is playing a different record. This wasn't, All You Need Is Love. This was, Everything You Know Is Falling Apart. And that's kind of what 1968 felt like. Vietnam, riots, assassinations, student protests, cultural breakdown. Revolution 9 is the sound of a world cracking open. So how do we listen to Revolution 9 now? Don't expect a song. Expect a trip. Play it with headphones in the dark. Don't look for meaning, look for texture. Let it wash over you. This is not music you sing. It's music you experience. And like a strange dream, it might confuse you. Or stick with you. Or even inspire you. Maybe it's not a great song. But it's a great soundscape. In 1968, the Beatles could do anything. They had just released Sgt. Pepper, redefined what an album could be, and practically ruled the musical world. And then, they dropped Revolution 9 on the White Album. An 8-minute avant-garde sound collage that played like a nightmare broadcast over broken radio waves. No melody. No rhythm. No lyrics in the traditional sense. Just a looped voice saying number 9, orchestral swells, screams, reversed speech, crashing pianos and static. And here's the kicker, this wasn't some obscure B-side. It was on a double album bought by millions of everyday music fans. Housewives. Teenagers. Soldiers in Vietnam. It landed in the laps of regular people. And it scared some of them. Confused others. But it also forced people to ask, what is music? Revolution 9 wasn't created in a vacuum. John Lennon, heavily influenced by Yoko Ono and the Fluxus art movement, became fascinated with avant-garde music and sound art. These were worlds populated by names like Karlheinz Stockhausen, John Cage, and Pierre Schaeffer. Experimental composers who used tape loops, randomness, silence, and noise to challenge how we define music itself. This stuff was not mainstream. You had to go to underground galleries, universities, or obscure European radio programs to hear it. And yet, suddenly, through the Beatles, those sounds were in living rooms across the globe. Revolution 9 matters not because it's a fan favorite, it's not. Not because it's catchy, it isn't. It matters because it was a bridge. It was the first, and arguably only, time when experimental art noise entered the mainstream untouched. It wasn't sugar-coated. It wasn't reworked into a hit single. It was raw, jarring, uncompromising. Millions of people bought a Beatles album and suddenly had to sit through 8 minutes of something that sounded like the world ending in slow motion. This was the Beatles saying, "You think you know us? Listen to this." And more importantly, art doesn't have to be comfortable. Why hasn't anything like this happened again? Simple, the conditions were perfect and rare. You had the most famous band in history, with total creative control. A cultural moment in 1968 defined by upheaval, experimentation, and a hunger for new ideas. An audience that trusted the Beatles enough to go with them, even when things got weird. Today, even the most experimental artists tend to live in niche spaces. Pop is polished. Weirdness is often algorithm-proofed out of existence. Sure, you might get the occasional left-field moment in mainstream music, Radiohead's Kid A, Kanye's Yeezus, but nothing as unfiltered and deliberately alienating as Revolution 9 has ever appeared on a #1 album again. And maybe it never will. Was it misunderstood? Definitely. But it also opened doors. Revolution 9 predicted entire genres: industrial, ambient, noise rock, experimental electronica. Artists like Brian Eno, 9 Inch Nails, The Residents, and even Björk have walked through that door. And even though it was mocked, skipped, and hated, Revolution 9 gave permission. Permission to not be commercial. Permission to not please everyone. It planted a strange little flag on the mountaintop of pop and said, art lives here, too. So the next time you hear Revolution 9, don't ask yourself if it's a great song. Ask yourself what it represents. Because for one brief moment, in 1968, the avant-garde met pop culture, and people actually listened. Let me know what you think. Was Revolution 9 a brave experiment? Or just noise? Drop your thoughts below, and if you made it this far, type avant-garde Beatles in the comments. Hit like if you learned something. Subscribe if you want more stories from the outer edges of music history. When you hit subscribe, write subscribed in the comments, and get a personal message from me. Until next time, stay strange, and keep listening.